everyone, my name is Tara. So I'm here to talk about the TEAS and the HESI. I just took both the exams and I watched a lot of these videos before I took these exams, and I really appreciated the help I got from these videos, but I kind of wanted to talk about my experience because I actually took both tests. And, I did have a slightly different experience than some of the things that I've seen on here. So I just, wanted to talk about it. Hopefully it can help someone else. So I took the TEAS first. And as you know, the TEAS it's an entrance exam for nursing school, as is the HESI. And there's a reading section, there's a science section, there's a math section, and there's a grammar section. Okay, and that's on the TEAS. So I got a 96 on the TEAS, and then I also took the HESI, and I actually just took the HESI, and I took it about a month after I took the TEAS, and I got a 93.5 on the HESI. Now the sections on the HESI are different depending on what school you apply to. For the school that I'm applying to, the only sections I needed are reading comprehension, anatomy and physiology, math, vocab, and then there's a learning styles and a personality profile. All right, so that's kind of the basic overview. Let's get into the sections now. Okay, so the science section, I know everyone always worries about the science section, and so did I, but I was going to take the TEAS in December, and then I got this book just to kind of study blah, 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 whatever. Now, I would not recommend this as the first book you get. This is a supplement book. I got it first. I would not recommend that. Why? Because it's not written by the test takers. This book is written by the people that actually make the test. I would recommend this book very strongly. It's only about $25. I would recommend this book, and also they have 2 practice tests that you can buy on the ATI TEAS website. They're $76, but let me tell you, they are worth it. Get those tests. They're written by the test maker. They are exact same format as the tests themselves. All right, so getting into the science. My biggest help was the fact that I had just taken anatomy and physiology, and also the fact that I had just taken Chem 1. Now, I got a 93.6 on the science portion of the TEAS, and I got a 92 on the science portion of the HESI. I did go through this book completely. I answered all the questions. The way this book is set up is they have examples, like practice examples, in each section. So after they teach you a concept, they give you like a practice problem on that concept. And then at the end of each, so at the end of the math, they have a practice quiz on the math. At the end of the science, they have a practice quiz on the science. I did those. And then there's a big practice test also in the back of this book. So there aren't a ton of practice tests. And the way I study, I work problems. That's how I study. So this book I liked because it has tons of practice tests. I think it has how many does it have? It had more than I used, let's put it that way. I think it had like 4 or 5. It has a lot, and it also has info. I didn't read all the info in this book, mostly used it for practice tests. Did read all the info in this book, not all of it, but all of it about the sections I was not as comfortable with. I did read science, even though I've, done well in science, but I just wanted to see what these tests were going to focus on, and I will tell you. Okay, so for the A&P, this is applicable to both tests. There is always questions on the integumentary system, the endocrine system. You need to know that, and you also need to know the nervous system, and then also cell structure. That's important. And then, you really need to know everything. Everything they teach you in A&P 1 and 2 is fair game. But these are just, I noticed the pattern that there's always going to be a question about like the endocrine system, hormones. So, you know how the hypothalamus contains releasing hormone, which releases the hormones from the pituitary gland, and then so know about hormones, know about ADH. I was asked that on the HESI. And don't just know facts, though, but be able to critically think about a problem. So if you're asked a question, say like, how is water so what does antidiuretic do on the collecting duct of the kidney? So first of all, that combines two systems, so you have to know antidiuretic hormone, but you also have to know what it does to the kidney. Okay, so it, reabsorbs water into the bloodstream. But, the answers are going to be worded a little differently. Just make sure you don't get tripped up. Make sure that you can put two systems together to see how one system acts on another system. So I would say that that's an important skill to have also. As far as the chemistry goes on the ATI TEAS, I would say definitely know a lot of the things you learn the first couple weeks in Chem 1, that's the bulk of it. You do need to know oxidation numbers. There'll be like a question, at least, a question on oxidation numbers, which you do learn later in the semester. And it might be the tricky one. You know how hydrogen can be +1 or -1 oxidation number, so it might be tricky like that. But you should know it if you've taken Chem 1, and if you haven't, it will address that in this book. But a lot of this stuff is stuff you learn the first couple weeks. So you know how you have an element and you have the atomic mass and you have the atomic number. Okay, so you should be able to find the number of neutrons based on those three pieces of information. So it might ask you to do that. When we talk scientific reasoning, it might ask you about hypotheses or the outcome of an experiment, or what's the control in an experiment, or what's the independent variable, things of that nature. And then biology, a lot of biology is going to tie into the anatomy and physiology, so questions about the cell, definitely. Know about DNA, that's important for both of them. And honestly, be careful too, because the questions I got tripped up on HESI, they actually do tell you in your score report. And I got tripped up literally just because I got hung up on words. I saw the word macromolecule, I overanalyzed it. Just, don't overanalyze the words. It's okay. Just, if it is the answer that you think it is, they're really not trying to trip you up. They're not, so don't let yourself get tripped up. Okay, so that's just my 2 cents. But I did personally think the questions on the HESI were a little more tricky than the questions on the TEAS. Now, a lot of people, pretty much everyone, thinks the TEAS is harder, but I thought the HESI was a little more difficult, and that was simply because I felt the way the questions were worded, it was a little more confusing to me. And again, that could just be me and the way that I process information. All right, so let's go to the math section. Okay, I had a huge shock here because on the HESI, I thought you could use a calculator because everything that I read, you can use a calculator, blah, blah, blah. At my school, you cannot, so you need to check with your school. It ended up being totally fine. I actually got 100 on both the TEAS and the HESI math section. Now, I love math. I like math. I've always liked it. I didn't study that much. I did do the practice problems, so I did all the practice problems in here. I did the practice tests. I did practice problems, a bunch of practice problems in here, so I did study. I did a lot of practice problems. And then the resource, let me show you, that I used for the HESI. I am sorry if I'm talking fast. I am trying not to make this video too long, but I'm trying to give everything, give all the info that I think is important. Okay, so I use this for the HESI. So it is the 4th edition of the Admission Assessment Review book, but I got it as a PDF because, y'all, okay, I spent $25 on this, $37 on this, and then $37 for this one. You can find it on Amazon. And $76 for the 2 practice tests, which it's totally worth it, but at the same time, it's like, okay, spent a lot of money on test prep stuff, so why not get the PDF? PDF is good. Same thing. So I did all of the practice problems in there. I will say not having a calculator ended up being fine. I mean, it can be a little tedious, because you're doing long division, multiplication, but, I'm okay with it. But just, you don't want to be surprised. So there's a lot of, and this is for both of them. There's ratios, proportions. Proportions and ratios are huge. Well, proportions, ratios, you know what I mean. They're huge on the HESI. There's a lot. Now, the HESI also has conversions that they expect you to know. The TEAS will give you some of the conversions, but the TEAS, the problems are a little longer. They're a little, not longer, but they have more word problems on the TEAS. So it's a little more like critical thinking, a little more algebra. Whereas the HESI is a little more basic. So, you know, I guess it kind of makes sense they didn't let you do a calculator. Like, they literally have some, like, addition problems on there. I mean, you don't need a calculator for that. But then there'll be ones that are a little longer. Like, there were 1 or 2 word problems on the HESI where, you know, it asked about acres, and if they have 60 bushels in an acre, they sell each for $5.97, and they bought each acre for $188. How much profit are they making on 240 acres? Now, that problem, that took me a minute to do, but you know what? It was fine. Okay, so, but also on the HESI, you need to know, like, your conversion with pints, quarts, gallons, ounces, and you also need to know miles to feet, feet to yards. You need to know kilometers, meters, yeah, so you do, like, and what it does is, in that book I just showed you on my computer, they have all the conversions that you will need to know memorized. I didn't have any temperature conversions, so, you know, that wasn't an issue, but I do know that. I just know that from taking chemistry. And then you also need to know volume conversions, too. I just said that, didn't I? I said volume conversions. Oh, milliliters, though. No milliliters, okay, so that's important too. Like 30 milliliters in an ounce, that's important. What else? You see, I feel bad because I did really well in the math, and I don't find math super challenging. But what I will do is I'll link below. There was some little quizzes you can take, and they're kind of like on a YouTube type format that my school recommended we look at. It's just like a free resource, and I can like link some of those in the description box below. Okay, so math. That's math. You get a calculator on the TEAS, and you it's on the computer, so you just have to use it on the computer. No big deal. All right, now let's talk about the grammar. So the grammar applies. I only had to do grammar on the TEAS. This was my most challenging section. I got a 91.67 on the grammar. And part of the thing with the grammar is there are only 28 questions, so you don't have a lot of wiggle room on that. Part of grammar, I'd say about half of the questions are vocab. And I love vocab. I did really well on vocab. The HESI was vocab. I got a 94 on that, and I really like vocab. Oh yeah, and that's the other thing. The math section on the HESI is 55 questions, and the math section on the TEAS is, it's 63, I believe. I believe it's 55, between 55 and 63. They're about the same, okay? And then the vocab section on the HESI is 55 questions, but the grammar section on the TEAS is only 28 questions. So you also need to know about subject-verb agreement. Okay, that's very important. So like, we have versus she have. I mean, you know, and you can kind of reason that out, like she have, that doesn't make any sense, right? Sorry, I have a baby, and I thought I heard my baby. Okay, so subject-verb agreement, that's very important. The other thing that is going to be, you know what? I'm just going to go get him. I'm going to go get him. Hold on. Okay, sorry y'all. All right, so what was I saying? I was saying subject-verb agreement, know the parts of a sentence, so dependent clause and independent clause, and know, for example, how know how, like when you'd use a semicolon. So semicolon separating two independent clauses if there's no conjunction, right? But if there is a conjunction, you just use a comma. So you do need to know like uses of semicolons, uses of commas, and things of that nature. That is important. It will also ask you like capitalization. So it'll give you sentences, which one's right, based on, you know, the different words that are capitalized, you know, titles. And honestly, it goes through a lot of that. Actually, this ATI TEAS Secrets book was a really good resource for that. And I did not do well. So on the practice tests on here and in this book, I only got a 74 on the grammar. I was so scared, y'all. I was so scared. But then when I actually just started studying, I studied the grammar a lot, okay? And, you know, I took the practice tests and I did a lot better, and I ended up getting 91.67 on the grammar, so I was extremely happy with that score. Oh, buddy, I know. I might have to give him to Daddy. Okay, so let's see. Okay, let's talk about, and vocab, okay, vocab, they actually have all the vocab words in that book, in the HESI book. So for the HESI, the vocab, all the words you will need to know is literally listed in that book, and they're not bad. They're not bad words. I mean, I felt like it wasn't really something I needed to study for, and I got a 94 on the vocab. Okay, the final section, reading comprehension. So, reading comprehension on the TEAS, I got a 95. I did really well. On the HESI, this is what brought my score down, y'all. I only got an 88. And there is a big difference between both exams. Okay, so the reading comprehension on the TEAS is, it's like, there's like three or four passages, so there's 63 questions for reading, and you're gonna, you know, like 7 of these questions are test questions. That means they aren't actually scored. The test makers are just trying to see if they want to use these questions in a future edition of the test. So, on the reading comprehension, there's like 3 or 4 passages where you read the passage and answer questions about it. And then the rest of the reading comprehension is like reading directions and understanding reading maps, things of that nature, which I really liked, or maybe like just a short little paragraph. And I really enjoy stuff like that. Reading the essays, that's what's a little more difficult for me. And the HESI was all essays. Okay, it was 55 questions, and there were like 9 essays, and it was all essays, and it was just asking you like, you know, what's the main idea? And that's not so much a hard question, but what I struggled with was apparently like drawing conclusions. Okay, and let me tell you, that was the part that really brought my score down. But some of the questions on the HESI were a little confusing, because it was like, okay, it was like, which one of these contains a conclusion? And it said, okay, one of the options was, since the 1800s, the way we use utensils is different because the manners may be different than they were in the 1800s. And this was a passage about utensils and the different types of utensils. And then it had a paragraph about space and how it was difficult for you to use traditional utensils in space. So it said at the end of that paragraph, chopsticks would be hard to use in space. Okay, well, that's a conclusion. They're concluding that based on, you know, just the difficulty of using utensils in space. But it's also a conclusion that saying that manners may be different, like manners may be different now than they were in the 1800s, and therefore the way you use utensils is different. Okay, like they're also concluding that based on the fact that manners are different. So, I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, like maybe I'm a dummy, but I kind of thought that both of those were conclusions, and there were a couple questions like that. And that's what tripped me up, was drawing conclusions. So, you know, the reading sections are very different. They're very different because one is all passages, whereas one is a little more like, you know, you're reading like a treatment plan, or you're reading directions on a medicine bottle. And I mean, I like that. I like that stuff. I like the fact that it's a little more of a variety. And I will say, on the practice exams for the T's, I did not do as well on the reading. I thought the reading was a lot easier than the practice exam. So here's some key takeaways. These are key. So the questions, there's a lot of study material for the T's, and I think that's one of the reasons I did a little better on it. I knew what to expect, and that's super helpful, you know, but maybe with the HESI, that's part of the test. Like, they don't want to give you too many practice materials. They just want to see how you'll do. Definitely get the book made by the manufacturer for both exams. Definitely get the practice test for the T's. Now, I also use the PocketPrep app for the HESI. People say they love that app. Okay, they love it. It's good, but honestly, I didn't find the questions were super true to form. It's just good though, because it is a good like science review and things of that nature. It's a good science review. It's a good vocab review. The reading though, it does not prepare you for the reading at all. So the PocketPrep app does not prepare you for the reading. But I did use it for the HESI just because there were less resources. All right, y'all. Those are kind of my key takeaways. I really hope I'm not forgetting anything. I guess I can always upload another video if I am. But definitely take anatomy and physiology first. Definitely take chemistry if you're taking the T's. Yeah. So that's kind of the rundown, all right? If you have any questions, please leave a comment below. And I'm sure that I totally missed something, but this video is already like 21 minutes. And this little guy's hungry. So, all right. Well, I hope this helped. And just leave a comment if you have another question. I'm actually taking the Kaplan in a couple weeks. So maybe I'll make a video on that too. Okay. All right. Bye.